Alright, moving on to another comic review, another book sent to me by my friend Chris, and this was a comic I was excited to read, and that is Universal Monsters Dracula. Universal Monsters Dracula is the first of these these new Universal Monster takes from different writers from Image Comics. Basically, Skybound and Image are doing new stories that are like sequels to the original Universal Monster movies, and they're starting with Dracula. They're currently doing Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is cool, and I'm very curious to see who will be the other monsters. Personally, I kind of want Tom King on the Invisible Man. I think that would be really cool to have. I think Tom King would be really cool on, because they want top tier talent to do this. Like Ram V and Dan Watters are working on the Creature one, and this was written by James Tynion. And Tynion, while I have, I'm very hit and miss with Tynion, I will agree that I think he does horror really well. Obviously, you would know him best for Batman, as well as his Batman Ninja Turtle crossovers, but he's also done Something is Killing the Children. He's done a lot. He's basically done a whole shit ton of horror-based comics, and I think he was the right pick. I really do think James Tynion was the perfect guy to get for this Dracula book. So, was this book live up to par? Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about this book. So this comic is interesting in that it's not so much a sequel as it is a... it's not a sequel per se. It's more of a sister story, a companion piece to the 1931 movie, basically filling in all the gaps to the film. The film basically has more of a center on Dr. Seward, who in this, if you guys remember the 1931 movie, Seward was Mina's father in this story, and he was a minor character at best. He was just there to introduce Van Helsing, and that's really it. In fact, I think the movie forgot about him halfway through. So it is cool to see Seward, who in most depictions is seen as love interest for Lucy, or he's not really, he's basically just seen as a nothing character. It is kind of cool to see Seward get some attention in the comic. So the story does center around Seward and him trying to treat Renfield, who Renfield won't talk about Dracula at all. Meanwhile, this plays more as a psychological piece, because we know Dracula, we know he's already here, and this basically fills in all the gaps to the film. Because if you guys have never seen Lugosi's Dracula, there are, the thing of it is while it is a great film, I will not deny that Dracula is a really good... Dracula 1931 is not a bad film. It has some growing pains. While it was the technical first of the Universal Monsters, although one would make the argument, myself included, the real start of the Universal Monsters was Lon Chaney's Phantom of the Opera. We will not go into that diatribe. I digress. But basically, in this story, in that film, you have to understand, in the early 1930s, people were still, movies were still trying to transition from doing silent films to speaking films. That's why a lot of the stuff feels kind of hollow, and a lot of the storytelling is told off screen. The other thing is, it wasn't adapted off the book. The movie wasn't adapted off of the Bram Stoker novel. It was more adapted off the Broadway play. So this basically gives us more imagery to go along with the story. And speaking of imagery, holy dog shit. Yeah. The artwork by Martin Simmons, who I think works with Tynion on Department of Truth. It is some great artwork. Also, I was reading this comic while I was at my girlfriend's house, and I was just sitting in a hammock reading this book while listening to Ghost. I will tell you right now, listening to Ghost while reading this book is a perfect combination, because even though it was 4 in the afternoon, and it's summer, I'm sitting in a hammock, it really sets the mood for the comic. So I don't know. But look at this just artwork. It actually, like, Martin Simmons' artwork reminds me a lot of the artwork done in one of my favorite Batman stories, Arkham Asylum: A Serious House on Serious Earth, where a lot of it is very, very reminiscent of Serious House on a Serious Earth, that Arkham Asylum comic I just mentioned. The painted artwork, the sketching, it very much looks like something, like, almost, it's something, terrifying, really. There's, like, just breathtaking imagery. Dracula is more of a predator, in the night than he is an actual person. He really only has one line in this comic, because really, he has all of his lines in the movie. And like I said, this is a sister piece, so it doesn't really matter. And again, Dracula is treated like in this comic as the monster in the shadow, the growing threat that Seward has to believe in, and he's even contentious with Abraham Van Helsing with that whole contention of, we're not dealing with something of science, we're dealing with something not of God. And I really like that. I really think that's kind of cool. It gives a lot more depth to a lot of the characters, where outside of Lugosi and Van Helsing, those we can all agree that we don't care about the other characters outside of Dracula, Renfield, and Van Helsing. Those three have actual character to them. Everyone else, especially like Jonathan Harker, really doesn't. So this movie does a lot more for giving character to Mina, to especially John, especially Jonathan Harker. And again, Seward is our main character. All in all, I think while this is not a sequel, it's more of a companion piece. I think if you read this comic, then go watch the movie, or go watch the movie, then read the book, I think you'll be very satisfied. I think this was a really stellar start to the Skybound Universal Monster line, and I cannot wait to see what they will do with the other monsters. I'm very excited to read, when it comes out in trade, Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives. I heard that's like supposed to be like True Detective with a monster in it, which sounds cool. But yeah, like I said, this comic was sent to me by my good friend Chris. Chris, thank you so much again for this book. And this was the last of the independent haul. So the next haul, which I think, yeah, it is coming this month. I think sometime like mid to late this month. I don't know when he's going to start sending the Marvel haul, but it will be Marvel Comics next. So stay tuned for those books. Anyway. So once again, hope you all enjoyed this review. Go check out Universal Monsters Dracula. I told my girlfriend I hyped this book up, and we went to Barnes & Noble the next day to get the comic for her. So, if that gives you any indication, right, of how good this is. But yeah, other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.